everybody? Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World, and a very happy Tuesday from everybody here at Prime Sports World. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be breaking down the Dallas Cowboys in their season preview. So thank you very much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. I'm David Huppin. Right there is my co-host, Mr. T.J. Hopkins. Happy Tuesday, T.J. How are you, buddy?
Same stuff, different day.
Thank you, my Aunt Judy, for liking the podcast. We appreciate your constant viewership. Thank you very much, Aunt Judy. I had a pretty solid day. It was a very slow news day, which I kind of like sometimes. But let's not waste any time, brother. Let's get into the Dallas Cowboys. And the first topic we're going to talk about is contract extensions. These negotiations between three of their key cogs going into this season: Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons. Will they be a distraction this season? And do you think that any of those three contracts will be done before the season starts?
Well, Shefty just broke the news that CeeDee Lamb's contract is not done, so he's not going to be at training camp with the rest of the team. So there's that. You would hope so. Like, I don't know if I'm Dak, if I'm CeeDee Lamb, if I'm Micah Parsons. I don't know what more I have to do to prove I'm worthy of a deal. Because if you're Dak Prescott, you ask them, if not me, then who? Like, who out there are you going to get?
Third in passing yards last season. I mean, the guy was phenomenal last year. I know he led the league. I think he led the NFL in interceptions the year before, but it wasn't like a gaudy number. It wasn't like 20 picks.
And it's not me, then who? Like, who are you going to get that's better than me that's out there? Because he catches a lot of hell. But Dak Prescott puts up numbers. Dude, top five. Dude, the top five quarterback in the league. Like, he catches a lot of hell. Like,
top five. I don't know about top five, but he's in the conversation with top 7, 10-ish.
Like, based on what he did last season, dude, top five. Like, he's top five. Like,
all right,
you can try to knock it like, oh, the playoffs, the playoffs. Kirk Cousins don't. I mean,
it's one game. I mean, I'm not gonna tear them apart because of the one game, but I mean, if we're really gonna talk like Dak Prescott, I mean, we're talking. I mean, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's probably that fifth guy, right?
Yeah, and Joe Burrow get a lot of love off of one run. Like, one. Like, he get a lot of love off one.
Man, I have never. Speaking of Joe Burrow, did you see his hair?
Yes, I did.
Holy cow! Like, man, I was not expecting that whatsoever.
he get a lot of love off one run, and it's like there's people out there. Oh, I'd take this quarterback over Dak. No, you wouldn't. Like, stop lying. Dude put up numbers. He's won 12 games 3 years in a row. Like, it is like it's not entirely his fault that they come up short. Before that playoff game against the Cowboys, before he could blink, the defense gave up 21 points.
And I mean, they did score like 32 points in that game. I mean, in most playoff games, you score 32 points, you probably win that game. But not if your defense is going to give up 48 points, including a pick six, I think.
But he wants to catch, but he catches a lot of hell for throwing that pick six to make it 28-0. It's like, dude, I was already down 21. What is you saying?
Yeah, I mean, ever since he returned from the injury in 2021, I mean, he was outstanding. 37 touchdowns to 10 picks, 4,449 yards. I mean, Dak Prescott deserves to get paid. I'm not sure where those negotiations are at right now. I think that I think these contract stuff could end up being a distraction for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you have three of your most important players all wanting new contracts and wanting new money, and three of your players that have earned new contracts and new money.
Like let's not leave that part out. Like, it ain't like they, ain't did shit. Like, they earned these deals. Like, that's the most important part. Like, it's not like they out there doing, average Joe stuff and they
I mean, CeeDee Lamb led the league in like the NFL in receptions last season. Like CeeDee Lamb's put up monster numbers since he came into the league. He's basically been unguardable in the National Football League.
Like it ain't like they out there doing like regular, like it ain't like Michael Parsons out there doing 6 sacks and asking for $80 million.
No, I mean the dude's been a defensive player of the year caliber player since he put on a Cowboys jersey.
Like it's like they've been putting up big numbers. Like
I mean, CeeDee Lamb won Offensive Player of the Year last year, right? Didn't he?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but Michael Parsons has been in the conversation for DPOY pretty much since he's been in the league.
Yeah,
and it's like this notion of, oh, you play for the Cowboys, you can make the money.
Who did win Offensive Player of the Year last year? Was it McCaffrey?
If it wasn't him, then I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't CeeDee Lamb.
It's this notion of, oh, you play for the Cowboys, you can make the money up elsewhere with endorsements. Like, no, I don't want that. I want my bread, bro.
I mean, not as much in the NFL, especially not at I mean, you can make some money as a wide receiver and edge rusher. I don't see CeeDee Lamb in a lot of commercials. I for sure don't see Parsons in a lot of commercials. I mean, they got to make their money where they can make their money. I mean, I'm not leaving anything on the table. Though these guys deserve to be the top paid players at their positions. Period. And I do think that this negotiations and contract stuff is going to be a distraction. There's no way it won't be. I mean, you're going to go into the season with a lot of uncertainty. I mean, especially with what else is going on with the Dallas Cowboys, with head coach kind of, a conversation could be had about the head coach that we're going to have here in a minute. The reshuffling of your offensive line, you let a future Hall of Famer Tyron Smith leave to the New York Jets.
Well,
you let Tyler Biadasz leave this team as well, who's an all-pro type center.
To be fair, the Tyron Smith thing, that was time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that, but I just think that this Cowboys team is going to be different, and I think these negotiations are going to be a distraction unless the Cowboys can get all of these deals done before the start of the season. I think there's going to be some level of distraction that this presents.
Yeah, I mean, it takes Dalton Schultz to talk about what it's like in Cowboy Nation. The distractions are more than just what goes on with what we're talking about, right? Like Dalton Schultz talked about how they give tours of the facilities, right, to the public. And Dalton Schultz is there for a workout, and they walk past the weight room, and it's fans banging on the glass, talking about, "Hey, Dalton," calling them out and doing stuff, being typical fans. And it's I'm not here. I'm here to work out, man. Can I do my job and work out? That right there is a problem in its own right. That's why the Cowboys are where they are. That's why you can win 12 games, but you can't get over a hump because you got little stuff like that bothering the players. Damn, I can't even work out in peace without Jerry and company doing stuff to the fans, for the fans and stuff. He take care of the fans better than he take care of his own players.
It's true. I mean, he was a real struggle to even get Dak Prescott his first contract. I mean, he went literally down basically to the wire.
And then it took Dak getting hurt to get the deal that he got.
Yeah. But yeah, let's swing in moving on from the contracts. Let's talk about the running back position. For many, many years, the running back position was a position of strength for the Dallas Cowboys. And now, I mean, yes, they brought Ezekiel Elliott back in free agency after he played that one season with New England. But let's not pretend like Ezekiel Elliott is the guy who was leading the league in rushing 2 years in a row. The rest of the guys on your roster, Rico Dowell has really not made much of an impact in the NFL. Deuce Vaughn was a third-round pick a few years ago, hasn't really had any impact whatsoever in the NFL. And then Royce Freeman is just there for depth. He was a first-round pick 10, and it feels like 10 years ago, but I'm sure it hasn't been. in 2018. So he was a first round pick in 2018 or third round pick, sorry, of the Denver Broncos. He never really got going anywhere he's been. He's been a journeyman running back. He's played on a different team almost every season he's been in the NFL. Probably not going to be the guy who's going to be the bell cow for the Dallas Cowboys next season. But who is going to be?
It's going to be Zeke. Like Zeke, again, this is another player who catches hell because he's not the Zeke of old. Like, you wouldn't be either if you ran into the ground the way Zeke did. Like, do y'all look up how many carries Zeke had in his first 4 years of the league? It was a lot. It was he was toting the rock, and they like, oh, his numbers have gone down.
He had 322 carries in his first season when he led the league in rushing. 322. And then he followed it up. He only played 10 games the season after that, but we played 15.
Suspension.
304 yards after that, 304 carries, 301 carries, and then it went progressively down since then.
All right, so 322. Then in 10 games, he carried the ball how many times?
242, which is basically 24 per game.
That's 5. That's 500. That's over 500 right there. Year 3, what?
300, 304, 301.
That's
so
8. That's over 1,000 carries in
1,100 yards in 4 seasons.
1,100 carries.
I don't think anybody's had that kind of workload on them since they got into the NFL. But yeah, he had a down season with New England, even though he was in a bit of a timeshare there, and that was a bad New England team and a bad offense. So it's really not fair to really kind of judge what he did that season. I mean, Dak has been a 4 yards per carry guy for majority of his career, and I don't think that's going to change here. I mean, but I think you have concern if Zeke was to get injured, right? I mean, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn is going to be the guys you're going to have to call up, but I just don't think that those guys are every down running backs in the NFL. I'm concerned about the running back position. Like, I'm also concerned about the makeshift of this offensive line.
Yeah, like again, it starts up front, right? Like, I don't care who your running back is. If you can't get no traction up front from the guys up front, then what's the point?
I mean, they got Tyler Guyton, who we're going to talk about when we get to the draft portion of this show. Tyler Guyton's got to try to replace a first ballot Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith. Like 5 years after he retires, he will have a gold jacket. That is a lot. That is a mammoth, and not to mention a huge human being. Those shoes you got to fill at Tyler Guyton.
You got to fill are not small shoes, bro.
No. Tyron Smith is a big human being, and like I think like we've seen throughout the years, the Dallas Cowboys are a better football team when they run the football consistently, and they don't ask Dak Prescott to do as much. Obviously, he's capable of doing whatever they need, but like we've seen that like Dallas is a better football team when they're running the football effectively. And with this offensive line and running back situation, I would be concerned if I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Of course, and like the whole notion of like Stephen A. Smith joke about them, they could go they can win one game and they'd be like, we're going to Super Bowl next year, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
Like it's it's a mess. I think they're trying to save face as much as they can. Like they're trying to cause as little panic as possible. But I think real football aficionados know, like, hey, this is pretty bad. Like, this is dire. Like, you can't, especially with the way Jerry talks, like, oh, we're all in on what?
Yeah, all in on what? You don't bring in a running back. You don't draft a running back. I mean, you don't spend a dime. You basically don't spend any money in free agency.
You don't re-sign your big three.
Yeah, I mean, it's
hardly
being all in. And then from there, let's talk about Mike McCarthy. A lot of conversation about Mike McCarthy after they lost to the Green Bay Packers in the fashion that they lost in, and coming up short basically in 2-3 playoff runs in a row. Is Mike McCarthy on the hot seat for the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, this is the third team that we're talking about with the NFC East about their head coach being on the hot seat. And this is a coach that's been in the playoffs every single season. But do you think that he's on the hot seat for this year?
No.
Or is he already on the hot seat?
No. We saw Jerry Jones keep Jason Garrett 3 seasons of 8-8. You don't get no more average than 8-8. You go 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, 3 years in a row, and kept your job. There's no such no. There's Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy's winning 12 games a year. He's selling out. He's getting to the playoffs. Jerry Jones is basically the football version of Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm fine with selling out and all that other good stuff. I'm fine doing that. I'm fine winning my 12 games and being competitive enough and selling wish tickets to the fan base, because I split with a team like the Eagles every year, and I split with the Eagles, and that creates a wishful thinking of, hey, we beat the Eagles, we can beat this team, and da 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 da. Like they are, Jerry Jones is the NFL version of Jerry Reinsdorf. He is perfectly okay.
That is good. That is quite the comparison. I like it. I think there is a touch of hot seat when it comes to Mike McCarthy, and I know Jerry Jones is he was content with Jason Garrett. But I think there's going to, if they come up short again this season, I think there'll be a real conversation.
Well,
because at least when Jason Garrett, I mean, they were just average and they weren't making the playoffs. So they were just like, oh, just keep this guy around. But the expectations are higher now for this Dallas Cowboys team. And I realize it's America's team. The Cowboy expectations are always high. But I mean, I think that there's going to be, I think that there will be a real conversation if they come up short again this season, especially if they re-sign all 3 of the guys that they're quote unquote planning on re-signing or trying to re-sign or whatever that situation is. I think that there's going to be a conversation about Mike McCarthy for sure.
Now, again, they're gonna win another 10 to 12 games. They're gonna be a wild card team. They're gonna hopefully win a playoff game this go around. And they're gonna get in. They're gonna be solid. Like he is okay with that. I'm so serious.
I don't think you're wrong, and I think the Jerry Reinsdorf comparison.
No, because like
look, good. Like that's excellent.
Look what it took for him to fire Jason Garrett. Like Jason Garrett was liked by the players. More importantly, he was liked by Jerry Jones because he don't chow. Like what other coach? No, what other team has a owner that does a radio show? The Cowboys. What other team, when they do media sessions, they talk to the owner first? The Cowboys. Jerry Jones is his own worst enemy. Why? Because he ain't gonna fire himself.
No, Jerry Jones, he's for sure not.
like he ain't gonna fire himself. Like he's the owner. Like he's the owner. He's the GM. He's not gonna fire himself. And that's the problem. Like they need to do something to get rid of. Like he ain't
going anywhere.
The only way I see change in the Cowboys, and I'm not wishing this, is like Jerry Jones has to he has to pass away. Like that's the only way I see them doing anything remotely when it comes to change. Like he has to pass away. And I'm not wishing for his demise anytime soon, knock on wood, but he's questioned, like he himself has even questioned his mortality. Like he's all but said, like, yo, I don't know how much more I got left. Like he's all but said that. Like he's I don't know how much more I got left. I want us to hoist the Lombardi before I go. Like he's saying stuff like that. But as long as Mike McCarthy don't say nothing or do nothing to rub Jerry Jones the wrong way, he's gonna have a job. He's gonna have a job. He ain't going nowhere.
Jerry Jones is 81 years old, if anyone was curious. He has his 82nd birthday in October. Moving on from there, let's talk.
And it's the same thing. Like, who, if you fire Mike McCarthy, who you replacing out there? Because at the same time, you got to replace 12 wins.
Yep. Moving on, let's swing into the draft. They addressed their need at tackle with Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. They got an edge rusher out of Western Michigan, Mac Represent. They took Cooper Beebe, Kansas State, a center. I'm not sure why it's not listed there on the graphic. They took a linebacker out of Notre Dame. They took a corner out of Wake Forest. They took a wide receiver out of Southeast Missouri State. They took a tackle. They took a tackle out of Louisiana to further depth up that position there. And then they took an interior defensive lineman out of Auburn named Justin Rogers. So Tyler Guyton has enormous shoes to fill. But he is a very good football player. He was a good football player in Oklahoma. The Cowboys actually traded up so they could they traded back. So I apologize. They traded back so they could have the opportunity to take him. But he plays a premium position. But he started only 15 games at Oklahoma, 13 of those at right tackle. He's going to play left tackle in the NFL. Maybe that transition will be tough for him, but it was an area of need. And if you saw the way the draft shook out, there were a bunch of tackles taken in this first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah. It's again, you're asking to replace a Hall of Famer. Like the minute he's done, he's getting that gold jacket, and I don't like it. I don't like anything. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, one of their issues was offensive line. They did that with 2 out of their first 3 picks, right? Cooper Beebe's a center, right?
Correct.
And so you go Tyler Guyton at Oklahoma. The issue with that is, does Tyler Guyton fit your style of play? Like, Oklahoma is super pass heavy. The Cowboys historically have been really run heavy, run.
I mean, I'm not so sure they will be this season, given the situation at running back.
And given the situation, probably not anymore. And you're in a situation where you're probably gonna have 2 rookies on the offense starting day one starters. I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, on their current depth chart, they actually have Brock Hoffman as their starting. Yeah, he's the starting center right now. I believe he was a draft pick last season. Yeah, he was drafted. It's his second. He's going into his second season, so he's out of Virginia Tech. I'm not even sure. He may have gone on completely undrafted, but they have him listed on depth chart as the starter at center. But that's probably because camp hasn't really opened up yet. But the Beebe, on the other hand, so he played basically everywhere on the offensive line. So while he was at Kansas State, he was a 2-time Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. He's 6'4", 335 pounds. He can play. He's played right tackle, left tackle, right guard, and left guard. He gave up only 5 sacks in his entire college football career, but he's never played center.
Like, when you read that, and again, like 5 sacks in how many? How long was he at Kansas State? 4 years, 5 years, maybe.
It's 1,400, basically 1,500 snaps.
That's insane. Like, that's
I don't know what that math is, but like it's like a sack every like 300 snaps. That math isn't good. I'm not a mathematician. Yeah, it is. That's good math. Right there, good for me. Let's go.
Like, that doesn't happen, bro. Like, I don't care. You can't knock that. Like, in no way, shape, or form can you knock that. Like, 5 sacks out of 1,500 snaps, there's nothing you can say to downplay that. You can't knock the competition. You can't knock who he was going against. You can't knock the school he went to. 5 sacks is 5 sacks in 4 years or 5 years. That's a sack a year, basically. Like, and you can argue, like, bro, like, to get that in the 3rd round, that's an absolute steal. So it's I just wish they would.
And the other tackle is a mammoth human being, 6'5", 334 pounds, 2-year starter at Louisiana. He's probably a depth pick at this point. I don't really know.
Well, it's 2 things you can never have too much of: too many linemen, too many D linemen, too many receivers, and too many weapons. I'll just say weapons. The pick, the Cowboy pick, the typical Cowboy pick is Ryan Flournoy out of Southeast Missouri State. Like, that's such a Cowboy pick, and this is almost like that's one of those, like, you sneak that in there, like when the draft's going on and it's in commercial, and it's like, oh, who is this?
6'2", 205 pounds. While he was 2 seasons there at Southeast Missouri, he caught 118 passes for 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns.
All right, good work. You gotta figure, like, hey, if he has a solid camp, solid preseason, he'll make the he'll make the final roster. I just wish it was three things in full depth this draft. It was running backs, it was receivers, and it was offensive linemen. And you didn't even think about drafting a running back. You just said, we're good here.
And yeah, I think that's the ultimate downfall with this particular draft class for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you don't address running back at all in this draft class. I just don't understand that decision. Like, you knew you were going to you have not a lot of depth there, and you decide not to address it in the draft. Like, I would have rather have seen them take a running back in round 3 as opposed to the linebacker out of Notre Dame. And he may end up being a good football player. Over 25 games in his career, he had 44 tackles. Final 25 games, 44 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. That's okay production, but you needed a running back. You didn't necessarily need another You didn't necessarily need another linebacker. I mean, this guy's probably a special teamer at best.
It takes Izzy. I wish Izzy was here because, like, he knows the kid better than we do. I give this draft class a C+. It's like you did address one of your needs, and that was offensive lineman. But I don't feel good about what they got.
Swinging into free agency, and look at the names of the players that they lost this cycle. First, Eric Kendricks and Ezekiel Elliott come over at the linebacker and running back position, respectively, and then they lose Tony Pollard to the Titans. Stephon Gilmore is technically still unsigned, so technically he could return to the Dallas Cowboys. Stephon Gilmore was still good last season. Like, he just continues to get better with age. Tyron Smith, Tyler Biotish, Michael Gallup, and Dante Fowler Jr. There are some other names, but this is all I could really fit on the graphic because they did lose a lot of players this offseason. They also lost, Leighton Vander Esch is probably going to have to retire, but he's unsigned at the moment. They lost, they lost Armstrong Jr., who was an edge rusher who cut some pressure under the quarterback. They lost Noah Iguahagami to the Commanders. Neville Gallimore was an interior defensive lineman. Jonathan Hankins is no longer on this team either. He's now a member of the Seattle Seahawks. They lost Tyler Biotish, Sean McKinnon. They lost a lot of good football players.
A lot of contributors. And again, so, like, I'm under the notion of they're trying to clear as much cap space as possible for the big 3. Dak, Parsons, and CD. That's my mentality. They're under the notion they're going to clear as much cap as humanly possible to bring those 3 dudes back, and nothing.
Yeah, I don't really. You talk about being all in, but then you let good football players leave your team. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I guess I kind of understand Tony Pollard letting him walk. I don't think they could technically afford what he's going to command on the open market, but like
Pollard did not have a good season.
That's true. He did not. Michael Gallup, Michael Gallup coming off that ACL tear. He didn't necessarily have the best season. Jonathan Hankins was a really important part of this defensive line, and they didn't really replace him with anybody either. So, I don't really know.
Like, you drafted, what's his name last season? You drafted Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. So that's going to be a plug and play. That's that situation right there. That's the plug and play right there. So Jonathan Hankins out, Mozzie Smith in, and they full starting spot. Like last year, Mozzie Smith was just rotational. Now he'll get starting team reps. But yeah, and the Stephon Gilmore thing, like I have no idea why he's not back in the uniform. Again, I said it last year, like bro, like y'all had like DeRon Bland having the year that he had was awesome. It just sucked that you lost Trayvon Diggs in the process, and you're finally thinking like, hey, we finna have this shit locked down. We finna have some shutdowns across the board because Trayvon Diggs had the career year the year prior, and he comes into this season-ending injury right after you pair him with another guy who's going to be getting a gold jacket the minute he retires, and Stephon Diggs. It's like, damn. It's like, yeah, it's like the old, hey, what can go wrong will go wrong for the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean, Stephon Gilmore was excellent last season. He had a good PFF grade as the cornerback position. Like he's still a productive player.
He's still
he may end up still being back on this team when it's all said and done. I mean, he may be one of those. He may just be waiting for somebody to get injured in training camp or doesn't want to do training camp and doesn't wait to sign until after training camp. I mean, Stephon Gilmore's kind of earned that at 34 years old. I mean, when you look at all the players lost, I mean, when you talk about Jerry Jones, you're all in, but yet you let important pieces to this team walk. I just can't get behind any of this. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are still going to be one of the better teams in the NFC, but I think that they hurt their ceiling a little bit by not re-signing some of their own guys and letting these players walk.
And it's almost like they're like, we're going to be one of the better teams by default.
Yeah.
And I don't like that mindset because that creates comfortability. Like it's like, oh, we're okay, and it's like, are you though? Like, are you really?
Yeah, so we'll see how that ends up shaking out. And it doesn't look particularly good for the Dallas Cowboys right this very second. Let's talk about the ceiling and then the floor when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. We're gonna go on the positive side here first to start, TJ. Let's talk about the ceiling when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. Looking at their schedule, looking at what they're going to have to go up against. What do you think the record's going to be next season? As the ceiling, the very peak of Dallas productivity.
Well, I say 12 wins. They 11. I say anywhere from 10 to 12. That's their ceiling. Seeing what they got to work with right now. It's looking like an ugly 10 right now. Like,
I mean, this is not a cakewalk schedule. I mean, you got Cleveland at home on the road. You got San Francisco on the road. You got what should be an improved Atlanta team on the road. I mean, Dallas always gets lucky with this BS. Like they get Detroit Lions at their place. They got Baltimore at their place. They get the Houston Texans at their place. They get the Cincinnati Bengals at their place. They got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at their place. Like, could you get any luckier if you're any other team in the NFL? Are you kidding me?
Well, considering this, like Detroit, that's a fan base that travels well, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Baltimore.
When I went to SoFi Stadium last year for that Chargers-Lions game, it was like 75% Lions fans. Like, it was crazy.
Baltimore is a fan base that travels well. Philly is a fan base that travels well. The big one here is Houston. If you lose to Houston, you're no longer the best team in the state of Texas.
Oof, that's tough. That's a claim they've had basically since
inception,
since the Oilers left town. Like
you're no longer the best team in the state of Texas, and then you got a few wavering fan bases. Like if the team's good, the fan base is good, which is the Giants, the Buccaneers, who should be the Buccaneers. That's still a tough out. Baker Mayfield ain't no punk. He ain't gonna back down. And Washington, like just looking at what they got right now, hey, that's 10 wins and it's an ugly 10. Like you gonna beat New Orleans. You gonna beat New Orleans. You go to Pittsburgh. You can probably beat them. I think you sweep the Giants.
I think you sweep the Giants and the Commanders.
All right. So, all right, let me start. All right, so you beat New Orleans, beat the Giants. That's 3. Beat Washington. That's 5. Beat Pittsburgh. That's 6. beat the
I think they
Panthers.
do
That's
beat the
7.
Panther. I think they beat Tampa Bay. I think
That's
they
8.
split with Philadelphia.
That's 9.
They beat the
And
Texans.
10. That's 10 wins. That's your 10 wins right there. Somewhere in that variation is 10 wins.
And now I think they can. I think so. We're talking about the floor. I think that's the floor right there. But I think we were talking about the ceiling. I think they could beat Atlanta, and they could beat Cincinnati, and they could beat Tampa. I think they could beat Tampa Bay too.
My ceiling is like I said, 10 to 12 wins. If they beat Atlanta, then and the other team listed that, then they're going 12 and 5. My floor. 8 wins, bro. And they just and they basically beat the bottom feeders that they have on their schedule.
I'll go 9 wins as their floor. I think because I think they beat Tampa Bay. So I think split with Philadelphia. They sweep Washington and they sweep New York. They beat Carolina. They beat the Giants twice. They beat. I think they beat Pittsburgh. They beat New Orleans. I think I'm not doing that. I've lost count, but I think that's right around 9 wins. And I think that's the floor for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they're probably a fringe wild card team at their very, very worst, and at their very best, they win the division, depending on how things shake out.
And we said this yesterday, bro. The NFC East has not had a repeat winner in God knows how long. Like, how many years has it been? It's been a while since that division has had a repeat winner.
Hold on a second. We'll get to the bottom of this right now. Repeat winner. Okay, so the last time, I was not exaggerating yesterday when I said 20 years. The last time they had a repeat winner was 03-04 when the Philadelphia Eagles repeated. Every season since has been a different winner.
It's been a different winner.
Yeah. So, and I think that trend will probably continue this season. Dallas is a confusing team. Like, they talk about being all in, but then they just don't make the move to make you think that they are all in. So,
hey, Jerry and Jerry need to have a conversation. Like, they're the same person, just 2 different leagues. And no, like that's real deal. That's real deal, Holyfield, bro. Like, you don't care. Like, you don't really care about winning like the way you say you do. Because those 3 dudes, the big 3, should be able to walk into your office with a blank check and say, "This is what I want." Give answers or questions about it. Like, they shouldn't be they shouldn't be questioned about it. They shouldn't be second guessed. It shouldn't be, "Oh, are you sure? Well, here's our number." Like, it shouldn't be none of that. Like, but that's where we are. Like, yep. They're perfectly content with winning 12 games, making the playoffs, and selling out.
But on that note, so thank you very much for joining us for a Dallas Cowboys season preview. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Tomorrow on the Prime, we're going to be swinging to the other side of the East, this time in the AFC, and we're going to talk about the New England Patriots. And a lot of change going on there in Foxborough that we're going to talk about here on tomorrow's episode of the Prime. I'm David Huffman. Right there is my co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. And check out all our streaming websites. I shared all the links to all the places. Go check that stuff out. And TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat, kind sir.
Yes, sir, we do. And we'll be back here tomorrow. Everybody stay safe out there. It's a crazy world we live in. So take care and be safe. Peace out, brother.
See you, man.